family farm. We're a small chemical-free operation located here in Ocala, Florida. And I just wanted to take you guys on a little tour today of our annual bed and then of our food forest. I've spent a little bit of time taking some straw and manure and rebuilding the beds because they were a little bit denuded. A lot of these I haven't planted yet, but we intend to. I'm just giving them a chance to sort of break down. Over here, I'm in the midst of trying to establish a rosemary hedge, which I'll put some more time in this winter. But then over here, we have some late cucumbers and some lettuce. We have some kale.
What's that big bush?
It's a Swiss chard. Oh, this is actually lemongrass, which is a perennial. We have some kale, and these are Swiss chards. We have some more cucumbers over there. I'm not sure if if the cold will come, it might not come back because it's not cold hardy. These are eggplants that have been doing extremely well, and we intend. It looks a little barren right now, but we intend to keep planting.
It's the winter garden. Can you come back and get that?
Absolutely, yeah. Some really good looking eggplants. They've lasted all year. Definitely one we're gonna do again. Garden looks a little barren, but we're in the midst of planting it. But we're in the midst of enriching the beds, and we'll do a follow up here in a few weeks to show you just how much it's grown. But come on and follow me, and I'll show you the food forest. This behind me is the first installation of the food forest. It was put into the ground in March of 2020. And then the other half over here, this half was put into the ground a year later, March of 2021. All right, guys, follow me and I'll show you around. No, this is our Alma fig over here. We actually have quite a few. We have quite a few different varieties of fig. It's something we're really excited about because we should have over a dozen different varieties once they start actually growing.
What's over there?
The tall stalks that you saw over there were cut from this. This is called Mexican sunflower. It is an incredibly useful and beneficial plant. It grows to upwards of 20 feet tall. I'll show you further down in the forest how tall some getters Megan wants to water over now. It's the tall stuff standing in the back there. They grow these massive woody spires, and in the fall they throw out these absolutely beautiful blooms of sunflowers. They're a perennial plant, and the stalks are very high in nitrogen. It's a nitrogen fixing plant. So what I've been doing is cutting off the stalks, and we'll throw them in a barrel, we'll drag them from there, we'll lay them down, and we're gonna build the beds on top of them.
What is this one? Sorry.
What is what? Sorry.
This
is called the candelabra plant. This is a beautiful one. I was inspired because our tenant farmer across the way there has one that's even bigger and more magnificent. It's just a beautiful pollinator. And it's called the candelabra plant. It's also sometimes called the ringworm plant because apparently you can make a tincture or a poultice from the leaves that is very beneficial against fungus and various fungal infestations on the body.
And what about?
These are various grasses. Now, these are part of the reason we have them. It's vetiver, and it's a type of sedge. I forget what the exact name of it is, but the reason that these were planted was because they throw leaves that are, sorry, there's a mushroom down there. They throw, not leaves, roots that are 50 to 70 feet deep. So what these do is access parts of the water table that the other plants don't necessarily do, and they actually make it bioavailable by bringing it up to the surface for some of the other plants. In addition to the stuff that they use, they're tapping into water that the rest of the forest might not be able to. They also are incredible because of that at fixing the soil, which is obviously a positive.
I heard they use them on like riverbanks, like in India and stuff, to like prevent erosion too.
Absolutely. Some of these grasses, the sedge, I'm not sure, but I mean out west, a lot of the erosion that took place during the Dust Bowl was because they removed grasses like sedge grasses, which there's a couple of really good cross sections of people holding grass, which can be about this tall, and then the roots are 70 feet long, absolutely massive. These are mulberries. Again, we actually have quite a few. Most of the forest is planted in sort of a pattern, so you'll see on this side it's fig. This is a mulberry. Down here is another fig.
What are these? These are pretty.
This is called the chasteberry, or a vitex. It is a perennial pollinator. You can see the absolutely beautiful flowers. And as with a lot of the other plants that we've gotten here, this entire forest has been planted to be either edible, beneficial, grow sequentially, or actually be medicinal. This is a medicinal plant. You can make a tincture from this. It is supposed to be very beneficial for women dealing with menopause issues or menstruation issues. Exactly. So we're all eager to see how that turns out. Greg.
Little butterfly.
This is a Calyandra, I believe. Oh, actually, I take it back. This is a... No, yeah, it's a Calyandra. That's a Calyandra. This in the back here is a loquat. These will get absolutely massive, and they throw off these small citrus fruit with what actually is a very nutritious seed inside. It's almost a nut that apparently is more nutritious than an almond. I had somebody tell me. I'll do a little more research on that, but that was the information that was passed along to me. This is a persimmon. Doing decent. This forest, when it was planted, a lot of these trees were actually pretty small. So in spite of the fact that the trees are a little small, it's actually doing pretty well.
Yeah, everything was just a few inches off the ground when we first planted it.
It was almost tough when we first put them in the ground I did a lot of hose watering to begin with, and it was tough not to roll over the plants with the hose. In the back here, there's a plum. Plums do really well here, and mostly because plums are incredibly hardy. We live in an area that deals with some pretty serious extremes and hots and colds. So the plants that do well are typically the ones that thrive, that are sort of zone hardy. Ideally from about 3 to about 9, which is a huge range, but those, will deal with temperatures sometimes down as low as the teens, and we'll get above 100 degrees pretty regular in the summer. So
there's little figs.
Yeah.
See? They're not ripe yet.
That's nice. There's a few more over here.
Oh yeah.
Look how pretty.
That's the Mexican sunflower.
This is the Mexican sunflower, exactly. And this stuff is also really good for this. We try to give wildlife sort of first priority. But what's great about these sunflowers is that you can literally do just this. Sort of snap them and drop them, and that will function basically like a green fertilizer. It's a concept that's pretty popular in the permaculture community called chop and drop. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You take it, you just rip it off the plant. Those regenerate so strong that it's not going to hurt the plant at all. It's just going to keep coming back. And you can use the living plant itself to sort of feed the rest of the soil. Those were planted with the intention that hopefully when this forest gets tall enough, there won't be any of the Mexican sunflower left, believe it or not, this is all this stuff. But hopefully the rest of the trees will get so tall that this will be shaded out and it'll eventually die. It's a concept called succession planting regarding forest. The idea is that this is the stuff that's going to get tall first and sort of offer some shade to the rest of the forest and kind of shelter the rest of the trees. But then over time, this loquat could get to 60 feet tall and 40 feet wide. So a lot of these trees will be, like a lot of the grasses might be gone here in maybe 10 years. There might not be any grass left. But that was planted with deliberation. That was planted by design. Because again, the grasses, offer some shelter. That's a banana tree back there that's doing very well. We planted that in a shady spot and it's done nicely. Behind it is some turmeric. This here is a peach tree, which is not, well, I don't want to say it's not doing well. I just pruned it. As we walk, I'll show you some of the ideas. There's another one back here and another one up here. On this row, there's peach plum. And with stone fruit, I've been trying to prune them of sort of a cup or an inverted umbrella. The point being is that makes it the easiest to access the fruit. Here's another persimmon. Here's another fig. This is another mulberry back there.
That big one?
Uh-huh.
Right there. You can see the Mexican sunflowers, how tall they grow. They're actually a lot taller than they even were in the spring.
I know, it's crazy.
Do you know what is this moringa?
This is, I forget if it's not
no.
A powder, so that one back there that I called the Calyandra was a powder puff bush.
Right,
this is a Calyandra.
Okay.
I knew it was one of those two. I was trying to remember the name of it. There's so many plants in here. I'm pretty decent at remembering them all, but you know, sometimes it's a bit of a crapshoot.
I'm still learning. It's
a
been
lot.
about 3
It's a lot to
years.
keep track of. That's for sure. This is called wax myrtle, a really fascinating tree. It also throws incredibly deep roots. It, by many people, is considered, it's not invasive, it's endemic to the area, but people try to get rid of it because it spreads so perniciously. He planted this because it's very deep rooted, it's a very useful tree. And also one of the more fascinating aspects of it is that it itself produces sort of a waxy substance on the tips of its leaves, that if you take a bunch of the green branches and the leaves and you boil them in a big kettle, and you boil that water, bring it to a rolling boil and leave it there for a few minutes, and then take it off the heat and let it cool, to the top you'll have sort of a kind of a scum that if you take that off, that is wax. That's the reason they call these wax myrtles. The Confederate soldiers during the war, the Civil War, used to use this to make candles. And they also, what's amazing too is that it's got a very kind of almost like bay leaf or cologne.
It smells really good.
I would make a cologne out of that. I forever think that. It smells so
It's
nice.
a little more citrusy than a bay leaf, but it has a similar.
This is actually
tone.
a bay laurel right here. It's doing decently. I hope it survives the winter. They don't like the cold. And boy, it gets cold here.
Yeah. You wouldn't think so for Florida, but it does.
This is a pear tree back here, which is doing quite well. This is actually one that, that is turned a little more prettily to the shape that I was talking about. You can really get a sense of how I've tried to leave the middle open and sort of train the branches to be growing out as opposed to just up. Because obviously if the tree gets really tall, it's tough to harvest the fruit, is the thinking.
Yeah.
You know? I think it was 2 years, right? It was March of 2020 when it went in. So it's actually it's like 2 and a bit years.
Yep.
2.5 years. This little stuff here is salvia. You can see that the forest is planted also, you know, most permaculture or food forests, ideally they're planted in sort of, if you look at it almost like a cross section, they're grown in layers. So you have smaller stuff like this. These are smaller pollinators. You also even have here, you have mushrooms, which is a really nice and beneficial layer that wasn't initially here, but it's come because the soil's so rich. So you have mushrooms, you have small pollinators, you have grasses, you have smaller shrub plants, most of which are perennial. And then you've got some actual fruit trees, and then you have some canopy trees. The mulberries are some of the tallest now. What will likely be the canopy trees are, this up here is a mimosa, which is a very common tree in Florida. Some people loathe them. I actually think they're quite pretty. Pollinators absolutely love them. But they grow something, you know, they've got a very vigorous growth pattern. It's hiding behind. This is another Mexican sunflower. This is an example of one that I'm going to come and prune really aggressively down to about knee height and use it as food for the annual garden. Because right now you can see that it's blocking the morning sunlight from this little guy, which would probably really enjoy it. It could really benefit from it. So, you know, either sometime today or tomorrow I'll get in here with the machete and chop that back, because that sunflower too will probably be almost as tall as it is now by the end of the autumn. I mean, it'll grow back pretty aggressively. Here's another plum. It's a slightly more pleasant shape than, you know, like I say, a lot of these trees, when I just pruned them for the first time, and I would try to be as aggressive as I could in terms of getting them into that shape. Here. A lot of flowers, as you can see. These are all different types of salvia. This entire mass of plants other than this peach here is volunteers from this year. These are roselles. They're what's called roselles. I'll grab one for you. Because they've got an absolutely magnificent flavor.
They make really good tea.
You can make it's like medicinal. It's very high in various vitamins. It's absolutely stunning to look at.
You see, some of them are flowering over here. Let me see if I can get them. I'll get a close up after. I love these. I think these are one of my favorites in here.
It's got such a lovely flavor. It's like such a bright citrusy flavor. If you just take the petal and chew the very bottom, it's got like a magnificent. That was these they make a lovely sort of pink tea, and then you add a little local honey. Oh my goodness, absolutely. The forest sits in sort of a rough horseshoe at the end of this field, which runs east to west long ways. Yeah, we planted that last half we just walked through first. This was planted in 2021. First half in 2020, and they've been coming along. Took a lot of work to get them established, but now they're growing nice. A lot of what I've been doing this year is actually trying to manage some of the other stuff to give the fruit trees the chance to really, you know, kind of thrive and be the stars of the show and come into their own.
What's this one right here with the big leaves? Do you know that?
That is turmeric.
Oh, that's turmeric.
Yeah, if you ever need to use it. I know you use it quite a bit. Megan uses it quite a bit for various teas.
I didn't realize it looked like that.
Yeah, it's like
Just
almost like ginger.
Yeah.
Grows, you know, it grows very similar to ginger. This is a pretty mimosa tree here. These ones, they grow so fast, they get so big, they throw out these absolutely magnificent flowers. They're not a fruiting tree, but again, he planted them with the intention of them becoming almost a canopy tree, which we can also trim very aggressively. This is also a nitrogen fixer, so it's also beneficial for the soil. This is a tiny little plum, which was having a rough go of it, so he's just almost a bonsai plum. This half is this is a peach tree, doing quite well. Down this row, there's quite a few of them that are a little bit bigger. These trees were bigger when we planted this. Believe it or not, this half was actually the second half that was planted, so this is a newer half in terms of here. But these trees were a little bit bigger, more mature when you put them in the ground, and they took really nice. This forest was planted by Pete Canaris from the Green Drains channel over on YouTube. If you guys want to check out any of his permaculture vids, he's got some great stuff. He's the fellow who planted both this and that half of it, and also helped us put in the annual bed. So much tribute to that fella, because he sure knows his onions. And yeah, things been growing along nice. This is a lovely, great peach. There's actually a nectarine along here. The leaves are very similar. This one's actually got a little flower. If you come and look. Look how pretty. I'm mistaken, I think these might be wine caps. We planted some in here last year that took into a substrate we had put in and then kind of died back, but I think I've seen some spreading around. And even if not, it's nice that we got mushrooms in here, because it's a good indicator that we've got a good soil biome growing.
It's looking more like a forest every season.
Big and small. It's starting to get to where, you know, it's nice to see birds and a lot of insect life in here. You know, just looking at this bush, there's so many pollinators. Bumblebee up there, if you look up at the top there. And there wasn't much really in this field when we first started. It was pretty barren.
It was a horse pasture, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly healthy grass and stuff, but I had nothing like the life that's out here now. This is Alright guys, well, I appreciate you coming with us on this little tour of what we got going on out here. We'll keep you updated as to further progress. Hopefully some of these trees will begin fruiting, you know, should be almost any season. We had some peaches and plums this year, and hopefully we'll just get more next year. But yeah, appreciate your time. Glad you came along, and remember that food is freedom. More people that can grow their own food, I think the better. And come grow with us out here. Thank you guys so much for coming on this little tour with us today. If you have any other requests or questions about our operation out here, please let us know in the comments. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and let's grow together. Thank you guys.